I don't know what it costs, but I paid the
Ready
first
to
40
start?
bucks.
Yeah.
I think they paid 30 more since they $70.
Do we have to confirm with the student first?
You have to
Confirm.
for Part C. Shannon, are you good?
Yes.
Do you know who that is?
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting for September 12th, 2019 of the Windsor Locks Board of Education. If everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Denise, could you deliver the roll call, please?
Chairwoman Patricia King,
She's excused.
Vice Chair Margaret Byrne,
Here.
Jim McGowan.
Here.
Dennis Greenawati.
Here.
Joe Tria.
Here.
And next on our agenda would be Board and Administrative Communications. Dennis?
Two things I have in here.
Joe, anything for
Nothing.
Jim? I'm just working on the administrator's contract, which we'll be discussing in executive session.
So I have a few things. First and foremost, I do want to mention that tonight's meeting is not being live streamed due to some technical difficulties. We are taping it, so it will be posted tomorrow, though, for everyone to see. I do want to take a minute and express gratitude to everyone for a great opening day and opening first few weeks. I know Mrs. King and I spent time visiting every school on the first day, and the excitement for the year was everywhere, and that seems to be continuing. So I do want to thank everybody for their part in that. I do want to also give a shout out to the high school for 3 specific parent events that they've reached out to engage parents as partners. First, with our IT department, guidance, administration, and Jesse Lavornier, from our Director of Partnerships, held a Power School and Grading Parent Night in the first few days of school, and the parents that were in attendance were very appreciative of the information. I did leave a laminated copy of a quick reference guide that Mr. Swenson and his team put together that gives kind of a quick outline of the grading and reporting, and people in attendance did receive that evening. I also want to make a comment about the freshman breakfast for parents that was held at the high school as well, for parents to get a glimpse into what their next 4 years of life will look like for their child. And then finally, last evening, the high school hosted a senior parent and student college planning evening, and that was hosted by our guidance department. So again, 3 opportunities for parents to be engaged and partners early on in the school year. The fall sports are well underway, middle school and high school. In fact, I think the girls are playing, I don't think they got rained out. They are playing at 7 o'clock at Veterans, if anyone is interested in this evening going to the girls' game and the boys' soccer. And boys' soccer will play away tomorrow night. I did also leave at your seats a pocket guide for the fall sports. So that's there for your reference, and hopefully you can take advantage of attending some of our events with our students. As you can see, our 2 student rep seats are empty, not because we're not filling them, but we're in the process. Our goal is to have them in place for the October meeting. So there's a process that Mr. Swenson is going through with them right now to name our 2 student reps. More on that to come in October. And I do want to give a shout out also to the Dollars for Scholars program. As you know, they do an incredible job of giving scholarships back to our students in the spring. And if you didn't know or you weren't aware, they are hosting a mum sale from every Saturday and Sunday from 9 to 1 through September 29th at Dexter Plaza. So I'd encourage everyone to take advantage of that opportunity because it does come directly back to our students. And finally, tomorrow at 4 o'clock, I invite everyone that's available and interested to come to the commemorative banner hanging and ceremony that will take place in the Windsor Locks High School pool area honoring the late Coach Malone, followed by the girls' swim meet at 4 p.m. versus South Windsor. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be public audience for agenda items. Anyone here to speak about an agenda item? Okay. Then the next item on our agenda would be the consent agenda. We have A, minutes, and B, personnel report. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Anyone want to make any changes? if we could have a motion? That's not a motion.
Right on cue.
Well, I'd entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of the August 22nd and PSC meeting and a regular meeting. If somebody wants to move that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we have one resignation personnel report on page 10. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, I move that the Board of Education accepts Ms. Selby's
Yes.
resignation effective August 21st, 2019, and offer her our appreciation for all her efforts on behalf of the students of Woonsock's Public Schools.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the next item for business is 7 Goal 1A, school opening report.
Sure, so thank you. As I mentioned, we did have a great opening, but I want to give you a little glimpse into what's happened the first few days of school. First of all, I want everyone to be aware that we received 95 newly registered students in grades 1 through 12 over the course of ending the school year and starting. In addition, we had 42 newly registered kindergartners. These were students that did not attend our preschool, and those numbers represent from June 10th to September 4th. So I'm going to take you through just a couple slides to give you a flavor of what the opening day looked like. As you can see, lots of excitement from the pictures here of opening day. And if this cooperates, we'll be in business. So what happened on the first few days before our students arrived? Convocation welcomed all of our staff back, followed by some professional development that was coordinated by Mrs. Cornoyer, but also led by our building administrators. And some of those activities included looking at Smarter Balance interim assessment, matching our own assessment practices to the actual assessments that our students would be taking on the state test, which is given in the spring of each year. As you know, we have moved away from our paid service for assessment and really integrating the Smarter Balance assessments into our curriculum and lessons and planning. So that was a major component of the professional development that our staff engaged in. At the secondary level, looking at PSAT, SAT, and College Board assessments and lessons, again, following the same parameters as the Smarter Balance, but tying it to PSAT and SAT at the high school level and looking at College Board assessments, integrating those into what will be taught, what will be assessed, looking at common assessments. We also spent some time with all of the staff looking at a data tool that's available from the State Department called the Early Intervention Tool, and it looks at milestones along the way at certain interims for students. Some of that being attendance, some of that being the number of moves they've encountered in their education, some of that being obviously their academic scores, a variety of things that give kind of a glimpse into what might be some red flags for us to have on our radar to just kind of get ahead of some of the student concerns that may be presenting themselves. We spent a fair amount of time looking at equity and how does we tie that to personalization for all students. And then, as I mentioned, data analysis and data-informed instruction kind of was the theme through all of it. So that's what happened before our students arrived. Enrollment, again, I talked a little bit about that in terms of what's happened in terms of registration, but just to give you a glimpse, as you know, we do look at enrollment numbers October 1st, but I know it might be of interest to you right now, even though these numbers will likely change between now and October 1st, we'll look at it again. But October 1st of last year compared to September 11th of 2019, where were we at? So if you look at North Street School, you can see that we have an increase of 23 students from October 1 of 2018 up until yesterday. South Elementary has seen an increase of 12 students. Windsor Locks Middle School, a decrease of 3 students, so pretty much holding steady. And interestingly enough, the high school saw an increase of 3 students. So when you look at our total enrollment, as of September 11th, 2019, throughout the district, 1,605 compared to 1,570 October 1st of 2018. So overall, an increase of 35 students. So I do want to show you a quick little video clip of our students and their first day arrival. As I said, we did spend some time visiting every school, and I think this will give you a really good glimpse of what was happening in our schools, how were we preparing for our students on that first day. And if, I don't know where my sound is, hold on. So that should give you a glimpse into what's been happening in our schools and what continues to be happening day after day. Again, I want to just close by thanking our teachers, our staff, and our administrators for making it as positive and exciting for our students as it possibly can be.
Thank you very much. The next item for our agenda, policy revision, 5126B, honor roll, second read, possible vote. So this was on our agenda the last time we met. Does anyone have any comment or anything? I believe the numbers are in here already.
They are, and just a refresher, the change, if you look at page 14 in your packet, was the criteria for academic honor roll, 3.5 or higher with no course level progress below a 3.0. For first honors and second honors, a GPA of 3.2 or higher with no course level progress below a 3.0. So having a set number, that was the change, and there's been no change since the last meeting.
Would someone like to make a motion regarding the policy?
I move that the Board of Education approve policy 5126 awards, scholarships, and honor roll for Winslocks as presented.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, policy review first readings. These are policies that begin on page 15. One question I have, the policies that are written there, do they show the changes, or it's just the final policy that's being proposed?
It's the final, through the policy committee, we did go over the changes, but what you have here are the final changes. And a lot of them were just language changes for the most part. There are some that have some significant changes or new, so I would encourage you to read through them as a first read. There are several of them. As you can see, it starts on page 15 and goes all the way to page 47, I believe, somewhere near there. A lot of them around the 2000 series, which were updates or new policies, and then a bunch of them in the 3000 series, which are non-instructional, that I encourage you to take a read.
And there was at least one that they were recommending that we
Eliminate, yes. Yep, that is in there on,
The question I have regarding that one, it recommends having, if we're not going to have a policy, then what is it, a procedure?
a regulation.
A regulation.
Yes, which we
So
will do that.
We'll have that
Yes, we will
to
have that to
coincide.
coincide with the
Revoking.
3326. Mhm.
I did have a couple of things. I don't know if, you want me to just email you about them?
Either one.
On page 25, 27, policy 2420, vandalism, just grammatical, really.
Okay.
It says the school are, so I think it should
Okay.
either be the schools are or the school is.
Okay.
On policy 2451, I didn't see computers specifically listed there, and I think that's dealing with,
2451.
it's on page 26, materials, services, fees. Because I do believe we charge a fee for the computers, correct?
There's a
There's an
protection
Oh,
fee.
insurance, okay. Should that be referenced in here, or? That's my
I think
question.
it speaks to, in that first paragraph, no fees, deposits, or other charges not specifically outlined in an approved student handbook, course guide, or parent handbook shall be levied. And I'm going to lean on my principal here. My understanding is that information is in the handbook.
There's a separate handbook for the one-to-one program at the high school, and that information is in there, and the insurance is optional. Highly recommended, however.
Oh, and under policy 3424, the green materials being used, I think it was page 41. It talks about parents and staff, teachers not bringing unapproved materials. Should we also include those who use the facilities? You know, like if people
Anyone,
rent
yeah.
out.
Yep.
And I think that'll just follow through in a couple of different paragraphs in that policy. And policy 3542, I didn't write down the page, but that's talking about charging for meals. I just got a little bit confused reading it about what is meant by charging, because one says charging's discouraged, but another section says parents can control what can be purchased, so.
Charmaine, can you talk to that policy? 3542, the lunch charging.
meal policy. Well, no charging, and charging is discouraged. It's a federal fund. It is absolutely discouraged. However, I don't want to say that the Fed and the state turn a blind eye to it. They turn a sympathetic eye to it when it is for students. And so we do not have a bona fide charging policy. So this is literally coming from some language from CABE, as well as the thresholds that you see about, the cuts for the high school are coming from the Parent Advisory Board.
And when it talks about, I thought somewhere it talked about parents being able to specify what funds could be used for.
Are you thinking about the overall 3500 series?
I thought, I had it written down as
Parents,
3542.
can you-
I believe that's already in place for.
I think, yeah.
Instance, like,
Oh.
they can purchase meals, but they can't go and buy chips.
All of,
Right.
yeah, the ice cream,
Yeah,
all
look,
So we
that.
can flag.
I think it's right
thank you.
there.
She just pointed out what
Yeah,
she's talking about.
it's there.
Restricted items.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, parents and guardians have the ability to restrict the use of funds. Lunches only,
Snack ice cream,
ice cream
yeah,
only.
et cetera.
But then on the next page, elementary and middle school students are enrolled in community eligibility provision schools and will not be allowed to charge à la carte items.
Meaning, meaning go beyond what they have on their account. So every student is given an account. Whether parents put money on the account or not is up to the parent. So if there are no funds on that account, they cannot charge for items that are not, because they're CEP, they're already going to be given a meal. Anything over and above, and that's what à la carte means, an ice cream, a bag of chips, or something like that, they cannot go and buy that on credit because they don't have enough money on their account.
So in a sense, we do have charge accounts or credit accounts?
They're not, it's a student account. So if I go, it's almost like a debit card concept. So if you go to the store and buy something on a debit card and you don't have enough money on that card, they'll deny you. We in the past have not denied them because we don't have, well, I shouldn't say in the past. We currently don't deny. We are able to deny students at the CEP level because they're getting a meal. We're not denying them a nutritional meal. But we just say you can't just buy a snack when you don't have any money on that account.
And at the high school level, this is allowing students to charge up to
They are
3
not,
times?
they are not supposed to be purchasing snacks either if they have no money on their account. But they're already, they're, so,
Oh, the high school too?
at the high school level. Because we don't have a policy in place, and based off of state regs, you don't have a policy in place, you gotta feed them.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any other discussion regarding the policy? And we'll move on. Next item, goal 2, set high school graduation date. Mr. Parkhurst?
So this is something new and exciting, especially if you have a senior. But beginning with the class of 2020, Connecticut has established a law that allows districts to identify a set graduation date as long as it's a minimum of 180 days from the start of the school year. Regardless of any weather-related closings, the seniors do not have to make up those days. So in collaboration with Mr. Swenson, I'm requesting that the Board of Education for For parents, for families, set the date now, because we can do that. The 180th day would be June 11th, Thursday, June 11th, 2020, and graduation be set on that date at 6 PM for the class of 2020.
And just for clarification purposes, if we do go beyond our budgeted snow day allotment, and you have to extend the school
The
year.
extension does not apply to seniors.
so
It
everyone
applies
else
to
will still-
everyone else will stay in school through the last day of school. Seniors would not.
I'm sure seniors.
And you're going to see, if you haven't heard, almost every town in Connecticut is doing it at this board meeting or their next board meeting in October. What it does, not so much for us, but a lot of other districts, it does allow them, especially for districts that have, need a graduation held at a place other than their own facilities. It allows you to book that early. It allows for all-night grad parties to be arranged, the date to be set, travel arrangements for any families that may be coming to graduation. So it's a good thing. It's common practice in a lot of other states. It just hasn't been something that's been common here in Connecticut. And this derived last year out of kind of a plea from the Ellington Board of Education. That's where it started. And then it went to the state and they moved forward with it. So that's where we sit at this point. So I'm recommending we set the date as June 11th.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that graduation be set for June 11th, 2020.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item would be the high school budget transfers.
I'm going to turn that over to Charmaine.
Okay, excuse me. So they look like small numbers, but they add up. The following three items are reflective of needed adjustments that have come to light after the final fiscal year 1920 budget was approved. Therefore, it is necessary to bring these items to the Board of Education for review and approval. We did this the last board meeting with a different set of accounts. The high school department chairs and the principal had been doing a deep dive to see how they were going to be spending their money, and they saw discrepancies, and they wanted to make it right. So I'm applauding them for that, because when it comes time to budgeting, we actually know what we're looking at when we go to do the budget development. So first item, move budgeted amount of $1,000 from high school account, it's the high school equipment account, to the high school education equipment repair fax account. So this is the career technical education. I got it. Career technical education area at the high school. So fax is Family and Consumer Sciences, thank you. I knew I was gonna mess that one up. Family and Consumer Sciences, and for the most part, as I've been enlightened, they really didn't have their money spiked out specifically for them in the career and technical education area of the high school's budget. So now we're putting it on the lines that are reflective of what she will need in order to fulfill on her curriculum for family and consumer sciences. So high school equipment now goes to high school education equipment repairs. It's a net neutral change. All we're doing is moving from one line that they had been using in the past that was not reflective of the fact that that area was actually in need of money and spending money.
Perhaps it'd be easiest to go one by one.
I was gonna, thank you. So the next one, moving right along. Motion
Well,
to,
oh, yeah, I was gonna
To
say,
make the
to make a motion.
oh, you wanna make a motion first
As we
before I
go
go
on.
to the next one? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. So would someone like to make a motion to transfer?
No.
I move to transfer the $1,000 from, I have to say all this,
You can say the high school equipment.
from the high school equipment to the high school ed equipment repair
Facts.
fax.
I'll
Is there a
second
second? All those in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, move budgeted amount of $3,700 from the high school education equipment repair tech ed account to the high school education equipment tech ed account. So it is moving from a repair account to an equipment account. So they're not repairing it, so should they need to replace a piece, this is where it gets charged to.
Is there a motion to make this transfer?
move to transfer the $3,700 from the high school ed equipment repair tech ed to the high school ed equipment tech ed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Okay, and I believe this
And
is,
the motion carries.
sorry. The last one is a move budgeted amount of $150 to newly created account. And again, this goes back to the tech ed department and the fact that the family and consumer sciences area was not clearly defined. So it's going to be moving just simply $150 from the high school professional membership tech ed line to the high school professional membership fax line. We have to create that account. The account skeleton is what's highlighted in yellow so that you can see that's generally where I expect it to land. But we're going to audit it to make sure it's in line with what the financial reporting practices are.
Is there a motion for the transfer?
I'll make a motion to move the $150 to the newly created account.
From the HS Professional Memberships Tech Ed to
Yeah,
the,
okay. Move transfer from $150 from 010 HS 250, what the hell is this?
well, no, just,
250.
yeah, just
Well,
reference the
whatever.
title of it. Okay. Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And I believe the next item is a donation.
Sure. So we were contacted just right before school started by Algonquin Power, which is a national company with a local office here in Windsor Locks, inquiring about making a donation. The local office has discretionary funds that are used for donations over the course of the year, and their employees collectively agreed to donate to our public schools in the amount of $700. So I'm asking for the board to accept that donation of $700.
Any discussion?
Where's it go?
That's going to go to help offset some of the unfunded, the charges on the lunch program at the high school in particular. And that was cleared with Algonquin Power. I asked them if they had any stipulations. They really didn't. They said, how is it best used? And then in consultation with our staff, we decided that that was the best use for it. And so I went back to them and asked that, and they said that was perfectly fine by them. They would have been here tonight, some of their employees, but they were unable to make it.
So old charges?
Yes, the charges, old charges, right? New charges, Charmaine? It's because the other one, it's in 1920 charges.
Correct.
Okay.
Every fiscal year, that account has to be 0 or positive.
Because we transferred money last year, though. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the donation from Algonquin Power in the amount of $700 and offer them our sincere thank you for their generosity.
Is there a
to
second?
Woodstock Schools.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and again, our many thanks to Algonquin.
Thank you.
Food service.
So this evening, we do have a new food service director who I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to meet, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time this evening introducing you to him. His name is Tim Malley, and he started in June, right before the close of the school year. But again, I don't think many of you had a chance to formally meet him before we went on summer vacation. He comes to us with over 30 years of experience in school nutrition, healthcare, and corporate dining. He resides in Burlington, Connecticut with his wife of 26 years, Sue, his daughter Colleen, 17, who is a senior, and his son Dylan, 14, who is a freshman. He enjoys cooking, I hope, hiking, and spending quality time with his family at the beach. This evening, I'm going to have him introduce himself and some of his guests and staff, and then talk about his work in terms of following the USDA regulations and guidelines as we move forward with the food service program.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So some of the goals we have for the upcoming year and beyond is we would like to increase participation within the program, not only in our CEP schools, but here at the high school. And we have some ideas of doing that, working with the administrations of each school and what works best for their school to get the kids into the lunchroom and get them breakfast and lunch every day, because, you know, we all know that children learn much better with a full belly. and we like to consider it nourishing minds. So here at the high school, some of the things we're really going to work on this year is in improving the quality and presentation of our food, getting a breakfast cart out to, I believe, the main lobby or wherever Steve thinks is best placed to make sure we're catching these kids when they get off the bus and getting them a bagged breakfast. We would like to develop a student advisory council to get some input from the students on what they would like to see in the program. We'd also like to, or one thing I'm going to do is concentrate on training for the food service staff on USDA regulations, food quality, and customer service. And then lastly, we're going to roll out a cycle menu starting in October. With that cycle menu, it's going to have a recipe database that's going to generate recipes per the amount of meals we sold the last time it was hence the cycle menu. So when that item repeats, we're going to be able to generate all our recipes off of that database based on the numbers of last time we sold it. So that should help the team tremendously in the prediction of how much food to cook and everything else. Not to mention the recipes will be their guideline to make sure they do things properly. So this is Amanda Berg, and she is our regional dietitian for Sodexo, and she came along, to talk a little bit about the cycle menu. She's one of the folks who was instrumental in developing it and is going to be very instrumental in us rolling it out here in Windsor Locks.
Yeah, so we have very, very strict USDA guidelines that we need to follow, not just with Sodexo, but any food service company, self-op school district. We all have to follow the same exact guidelines. All of these guidelines are all available on the Connecticut State Department of Education website, and they dictate exactly how many calories, saturated fat, and sodium targets we need to hit per week. So based on that guideline is how myself and our menu planning committee go about developing the menus for each month. With that being said, with our new software program that Tim mentioned, this is a program that has been running nationally, and Connecticut is lucky enough to be next on their list. And it has already started going through some of our state administrative reviews this past school year, and needless to say, our state administrators were very pleased with the program, and they were also very pleased with a lot of the recipes that we presented, as well as various vegetarian options. Also, something that was brought to our attention was variety provided to students. So something that this program and what we are going to be providing is enormous amount of vegetable and fruit options for students. Those are what tend to be lower in calories, saturated fat, and sodium. So that's where we have a lot of flexibility to present students with a colorful variety of fruits and vegetables and nutritious food for them. So again, the USDA guidelines, they're all available on the Connecticut State Department of Education, and those are what we follow when we're developing our menus.
So have you discovered some savings in these programs where you're identifying the popular choices and?
Yeah, just the recipes generating off of past numbers kind of takes a little bit of the guessing game out of it. And after you go through several cycles, they really start to show the patterns. And that's when you start to see the savings. Especially with new items, our students are going to shy away initially, but then they're going to hear from their friends that the items are actually good. We ran a falafel last week, and to a lot of surprise of the CAF leads, the kids were coming back and saying, hey, that's pretty good, new way to eat chickpeas. So, it really covers both ends of the spectrum. We're getting healthy foods into the kids, we're giving them a little excitement on some new items, and, it meets the USDA guidelines, as Amanda said, that, makes this a difficult end of the business to run because the guidelines are pretty strict, and, they're not only based on your daily menus, they're based on your weekly menus. So, it's very difficult to manage with writing a menu new every week or every month.
Any questions? Well, thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
time.
next item would be a proposed change to the Board of Education meeting calendar.
So I have two recommended changes. One is a result of your setting the graduation date. That was a scheduled Board of Education meeting because it falls on the second Thursday. So I'm requesting that we move that meeting to a week earlier, June 4th, 2020. And the second one is the March 26th meeting, which is our second meeting of the month, falls on the same date as the high school musical. So I'm requesting that we cancel that meeting and only have one meeting in March.
Any discussion about changes?
Make a motion that the Board of Education accept the changes to the board meeting calendar as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. I believe, I'll back up to the agenda. The next item on the agenda would be any additional board or superintendent comment. The only thing I was looking to do was to schedule the finance subcommittee meetings, but if you want to wait till Pat's available too.
Yeah, we'll chart that.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Public audience in general. Thank you. Future business, SBAC scores and improvement plans.
So we'll be
performance.
looking at that at the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll be digging into the data and what our efforts are to improve.
Thank you. So now we need to adjourn this meeting to go into executive session, and we seem to have two matters for executive session. I believe we can do one motion
Yes.
and just specify for
Who's
each.
in which one, and then we'll do the first one, and then invite the additional members into
the
that
second.
meeting.
So would someone like to make a motion?
Can I ask a question first? About the school year, can I ask that now?
Sure.
Why do we have school start before Labor Day?
So a few years back, there was a movement that didn't get a lot of legwork, but of having a statewide consistent calendar. And one of those, there were certain parameters within that. One was a start date within a certain window. It's just been a notorious thing that we've always started before Labor Day in the state of Connecticut in most recent years. But that is something that when we bring a calendar recommendation to you for the board, that you would have a chance to weigh in on and give your opinion. The thing to keep in mind with that is starting after Labor Day would also extend the year later into June. And then, obviously, we're not talking about seniors anymore being impacted by it, but grades pre-K through 11 would be impacted. For example, if you have 3, 4, or even 5 snow days or weather-related days, you're pushing close to probably the middle, even sometimes to the end of June, which gets pretty tight. The other thing to keep in mind with that, too, is the further you push out the start date, the further you push out the end of the year. There is, state law does say that you can't have the school year go past June 30th. So if we got close to that, we would have to start to take away days from the April vacation.
We're talking about 2 days, but it's adding another week to summer. A lot of people take vacation that last week, and you can't. Because your kids start school on Thursdays, and then they go to school one day and they're off. It's kind of stupid, really.
Yeah, so like I said, I think that would be something for the board to entertain when we bring forward the calendar for the next school year to consider.
Just thought I'd ask that. Thank you.
A motion regarding our executive session. Oh, do you have this? You can just read like, I move to,
I move to adjourn the meeting to executive session as permitted by Connecticut General Statutes, Section 1-225A, for the following purposes as allowed by Section 1-206. That is,
the first matter will be.
the first matter will be discussion of a confidential student matter
And attendance.
that attendance, you want to?
Yeah, read it all.
That attendance in executive session will be limited to members of the Board of Education, superintendents of schools, the student, parent or guardian, Winslow High School principal. And we gotta combine
And
them.
then the second one, yeah.
And the second matter, discussion of administrators bargaining unit negotiations. That attendance in the executive session shall be limited to members of the Board of Education, superintendents of schools, and human resource director.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we are adjourned to our executive session.
The room behind here.
Oh, okay. Thank you all.